A Christmas dinner that was never meant to be silent. The Christmas dinner was supposed to be perfect. That was what Elena Wright told herself as she stepped into the Grand Orion Hotel, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor, her daughter's small hand resting in hers. Crystal chandeliers glowed above them, reflecting off gold-trimmed tables dressed in red and white. Snow fell gently outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning the city into a postcard. Every detail had been planned weeks in advance. Every detail, except one. Elena adjusted the delicate green ribbon in her daughter's hair and bent slightly, forcing a smile. Lily stood quietly beside her, dark eyes taking everything in but giving nothing away. At 6 years old, Lily was beautiful, observant, and painfully still. Too still. People greeted Elena from every direction: board members, investors, donors. Their lips moved. Their voices rose and fell. Laughter burst and faded. Hands reached out to shake hers. Lily didn't react. She never did, because Lily was deaf. As Elena guided her daughter toward the long banquet table reserved for executives, she felt the familiar tightening in her chest. This world, the world Elena ruled, was not built for Lily. It was loud, fast, and careless. And tonight, it felt crueler than ever. They sat. Plates were served. Glasses clinked. Someone proposed a toast. Applause erupted like thunder. Lily flinched. Elena noticed. She leaned close, speaking softly, even though she knew Lily couldn't hear her words. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe." Lily nodded politely, eyes downcast, fingers twisting together in her lap. Across the table, a man leaned over and whispered, "Isn't this magical?" Elena smiled automatically. Magical. She glanced back at Lily, who hadn't touched her food, who stared at the flickering candle as if it were a foreign object, and felt something close to guilt crawl up her spine. She had brought her daughter into a room where no one spoke her language. Minutes passed. Then more. Lily's shoulders slowly curled inward, as if she were trying to make herself smaller. Invisible. Forgotten. Elena opened her mouth to suggest they leave early when a shadow fell across the table. A man in a simple catering uniform stood there, holding a tray. He looked ordinary, mid-30s, tired eyes, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly messy like he'd been running all night. "Excuse me," he said gently. Elena looked up, ready to wave him away. But the man wasn't looking at her. He was looking at Lily. Slowly, carefully, he lowered the tray to a nearby stand and knelt so he was eye level with the little girl. The room behind him kept buzzing, but something about his presence seemed to cut through the noise. Then his hands moved. Not randomly, not awkwardly, but deliberately, confidently. He signed. "Hello." Lily's eyes snapped up. Her breath caught. For a split second, she stared at him like she was afraid this was a trick. Then, tentatively, her fingers lifted. They answered. "Hello." Elena froze. The man smiled, not wide or dramatic, but warm. "Real." "I like your dress," his hand said. "It's very pretty." Lily's lips parted. A soundless laugh escaped her mouth, shoulders lifting as her face transformed. She signed back faster now, excitement trembling in her fingers. "It's my Christmas dress." The man nodded solemnly. "It's the best one I've seen tonight." Lily beamed. Actually beamed. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. She hadn't seen that smile all evening. Not once. Not until this stranger knelt in front of her daughter, like Lily was the most important person in the room. Guests nearby began to notice. Conversations paused. Heads turned. "Elena," someone murmured. "Is that the staff?" She didn't answer. She couldn't, because tears were burning behind her eyes. The man continued signing, patient and gentle, asking Lily if she liked snow, if she liked Christmas lights, if she was excited for Santa. Lily answered eagerly, her shyness melting away with every movement of his hands. Finally, Elena found her voice. How do you know sign language?" The man looked up, startled, as if he'd forgotten anyone else existed. He stood quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't," Elena said, her voice unsteady. You made my daughter smile. He hesitated, then glanced back at Lily, who was still smiling at him, still holding her hands up like she didn't want the conversation to end. My son is deaf, he said quietly. I learned for him. Something inside Elena cracked. In a room full of powerful people, million-dollar deals, and polished words, it wasn't the speeches or the decorations that mattered anymore. It was a single dad on his knees, speaking the only language her daughter understood. And in that moment, Elena realized this Christmas dinner was about to change everything. The single dad no one was supposed to notice. Elena Wright had hosted dozens of charity dinners in her life. None of them had ever left her unable to swallow her food. She sat frozen in her chair, fork hovering over her untouched plate, watching her daughter sign animatedly to a man who was supposed to fade into the background. Around them, the dinner slowly returned to its rhythm. Soft music, murmured conversations, the clink of silverware, but Elena felt as if the room had shifted into a different world entirely. A quieter one. A kinder one. Lily laughed again, silent but unmistakable, and Elena's breath caught. The soundless joy on her daughter's face was something she rarely saw in public spaces. Lily was used to being the only one who didn't belong. Until now. The man finally stood, offering Lily a small bow as if she were royalty. She clapped her hands in delight, signing something quickly. Don't go. He smiled apologetically. I have to work. Lily frowned, lower lip trembling. Elena stood up before she could stop herself. Please, she said, louder than she intended. If you have a moment, could you stay? The man looked uneasy. I don't want to get in trouble, ma'am. Elena met his eyes. I'm the one hosting this dinner. That seemed to settle it. He pulled a chair closer, sitting at the edge, careful not to intrude. Lily immediately leaned toward him, as if she were magnetized. Elena watched closely now, not as a CEO, but as a mother. The man never rushed Lily. He waited. He watched her hands. When she struggled to find a sign, he gently helped, never correcting, never taking over. It wasn't just sign language, it was fluency born from love. What's your name? Elena asked softly. Daniel, he replied. Daniel Carter. Are you normally assigned to events like this? She asked. He shook his head. I pick up extra shifts. Christmas pays better. There was no bitterness in his voice. Just honesty. Lily tugged his sleeve, signing insistently. Daniel chuckled. She wants to know if you're a boss. Elena smiled despite herself. Tell her yes. I guess I am. Daniel signed it. Lily's eyes widened in awe. You're very important. Lily signed back to Elena. Elena's chest tightened. So are you. She signed clumsily, her movement stiff, practiced but imperfect. Lily's smile faltered, not in disappointment, but in understanding. She squeezed her mother's hand. Daniel noticed everything. That's when Elena realized something painful. This stranger understood her daughter better than she did. As dessert plates were served, Elena leaned closer to Daniel. You said your son is deaf? Yes, he answered.
Ethan.
He's 8. And you learned sign language for him? Daniel nodded. When he was diagnosed, the doctor said learning would be hard. That most parents don't stick with it. His jaw tightened slightly. I promised my son I would. Elena looked at Lily, who was now excitedly signing about Christmas cookies. How long did it take you? She asked. Longer than it should have, Daniel said. But once I learned, I realized something. What? He wasn't quiet, Daniel said gently. The world just wasn't listening. The words hit Elena like a confession she'd been avoiding for years. She had hired tutors, therapists, specialists. But how often had she truly listened? A board member leaned over, whispering, Should we be concerned about protocol? Elena didn't even look at him. No, because protocol didn't matter anymore. Across the table, Lily suddenly signed something more carefully, slower this time. Daniel's smile faded slightly as he translated. She wants to know why people stop talking to her, he said softly. Why they look away. Elena's throat closed. She didn't have an answer. Daniel signed back to Lily, his hands steady. Sometimes people are afraid of what they don't understand. But that's not your fault. Lily nodded, absorbing the truth like something she'd been waiting to hear. She leaned against Daniel's arm, trusting him without hesitation. Elena felt a sharp sting of jealousy, followed immediately by relief. Someone saw her daughter. Someone was speaking her language. When the dinner finally ended, guests stood and mingled. Coats were collected. Goodbyes exchanged. But Lily refused to leave her chair. She signed one last question to Daniel. Will you come again? Daniel hesitated, glancing at Elena. Elena swallowed, then nodded. Yes, she said firmly. If you want him to. Lily's face lit up like Christmas morning. Daniel stood, heart clearly pounding, and signed goodbye. As he walked away, Elena realized the truth she could no longer ignore. This single dad wasn't just a kind stranger. He was a doorway into her daughter's world, and Elena was about to step through it. The question that broke the CEO's perfect world. The next morning, Elena Wright woke before dawn. The city outside her penthouse windows was still dark, the skyline quiet, snow piled along the edges of the streets like untouched memories. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, one thought replaying again and again in her mind. Why did a stranger understand my daughter better than I do? She hadn't slept much after the Christmas dinner. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lily's smile. Wide, free, alive. The kind of smile Elena realized she rarely earned herself. At breakfast, Lily signed excitedly while chewing her toast. Is Daniel coming today? Elena paused, coffee cup halfway to her lips. No, sweetheart, she said aloud, then corrected herself, signing slowly. Not today. Lily's shoulders fell, just a little. That small movement felt like a knife. On the drive to school, Elena watched Lily through the rear-view mirror. Her daughter gazed out the window, tracing shapes in the fogged glass with her finger. She looked peaceful, but also distant. Invisible again. When Elena arrived at her office later that morning, the world snapped back into place. Assistants hurried beside her. Emails flooded in. A major acquisition waited for her signature. Normally, Elena thrived in this environment. Today, it felt hollow. During a board meeting, someone mentioned the success of the Christmas fundraiser. Applause filled the room. Elena nodded automatically, but her mind was elsewhere. Sometimes people are afraid of what they don't understand. Daniel's words echoed like a challenge. After the meeting, Elena made a decision she'd avoided for years. She canceled her afternoon appointments, and instead, she drove to Lily's school. From behind a classroom window, Elena watched her daughter sit at a small desk. The teacher spoke, signing alongside her words. Lily followed carefully, but when the other children laughed, Lily didn't join in. She smiled politely, unsure why. Elena's chest tightened. This was Lily's life. Always half a step behind the world. When school ended, Elena surprised Lily by taking her out for hot chocolate. Lily's face lit up as she signed questions rapidly. Is it a holiday? Did I do something special? Elena shook her head. I just wanted to be with you. They sat by the cafe window, steam rising from their cups. Elena watched Lily stir her drink carefully, then signed something unexpected. Mommy, do you feel lonely? The question stole Elena's breath. Why would you ask that? She whispered. Lily signed slowly. You work a lot. People talk to you. But you look sad sometimes. For the first time, Elena had no corporate answer. No polished explanation. She reached across the table and held Lily's hands. Yes, she signed. Sometimes I do. Lily squeezed her fingers. Me too. That was the moment Elena's perfect world cracked. That afternoon, Elena did something she had never done before. She asked for help. She called the event staffing agency and requested Daniel Carter by name. When Daniel answered his phone, he sounded confused. This is Daniel. Elena Wright, she said. From the Christmas dinner. There was a pause. Is everything okay? Yes, Elena replied. But I need to talk to you. In person. They met that evening in a quiet park, snow crunching beneath their feet. Daniel arrived wearing a worn jacket, his hands tucked into his pockets. I hope this isn't about me distracting guests, he said carefully. Elena shook her head. It's about my daughter. Daniel listened as Elena spoke, really spoke for the first time, about guilt, about absence, about how success had become a shield she hid behind. I thought providing everything was enough, she admitted. But I never learned her world. Daniel nodded. A lot of parents think that. She looked at him. How did you learn? Daniel smiled sadly. By failing first. By watching my son give up on me. And deciding I couldn't let that happen again. The honesty in his voice was disarming. Lily's question echoed in Elena's mind. Do you feel lonely? She took a breath. Would you consider spending more time with Lily? Daniel hesitated. I'm just a server. A single dad. That's exactly why, Elena said. You see her. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Daniel spoke. My son comes first. Always. Of course, Elena said. I wouldn't ask otherwise. Daniel studied her face. Then yes, I'll help. As they parted ways, Elena felt something unfamiliar settle into her chest. Not control. Not power. Trust. That night, Elena signed to Lily before bed. I met Daniel today. Lily's eyes sparkled. Will he come again? Elena smiled softly. Yes. Lily hugged her, tighter than usual. As Elena turned off the light, she realized the truth. This wasn't just about helping her daughter. It was about learning how to be a mother in a world she had never truly entered. And Daniel Carter was holding the door open. The offer that shocked them both. Daniel Carter had learned not to expect miracles. Life as a single father taught him that hope was something you handled carefully like glass. Too much pressure and it shattered. So when Elena Wright asked him to come to her office the following Monday, Daniel spent the entire weekend convincing himself this wasn't about opportunity. It was probably about boundaries. Or paperwork. Or a polite thank you and goodbye. He dropped his son Ethan off at school that morning, adjusting the boy's scarf and signing carefully. I'll be back soon. Ethan smiled and signed back. You always are. Those words steadied Daniel as he stood in the lobby of Wright Global Enterprises, staring up at a building made of steel and ambition. The kind of place where men like him didn't belong. Mr. Carter? The receptionist asked. Yes, Daniel replied, straightening his jacket. Ms. Wright will see you now. The elevator ride felt endless. When Daniel entered Elena's office, he stopped short. The space was warm, unexpectedly so, soft light, a small Christmas tree in the corner, and framed photos on the desk. All of them were of Lily. Thank you for coming, Elena said, standing. She didn't offer a handshake. Instead, she signed. I'm glad you're here. Daniel blinked, surprised, and quietly impressed. You're improving, he said gently. I'm trying, Elena admitted. Please sit. They talked for a while. About Lily's school. About Ethan. About sign language classes Elena had started attending late at night after work. Then Elena inhaled slowly. I want to offer you a job, she said. Daniel stiffened. I already work. Not like this, she replied. I want you to work with Lily. Full-time. The words hung in the air. Daniel stared at her. I don't understand. I want you to be her sign language companion, Elena explained. Someone who helps her navigate the world. Someone she trusts. Daniel's first instinct was to refuse. I'm not a professional, he said quickly. I'm not a therapist or a teacher. I know, Elena said. You're a father. Silence stretched between them. Daniel's voice softened. Why me? Because when you knelt down at that dinner, Elena said, her voice trembling slightly, my daughter stopped feeling invisible. Daniel swallowed. And because, Elena continued, I don't want Lily to grow up thinking the world won't meet her halfway. Daniel looked down at his hands, the same hands that had signed hello to Lily and changed everything. I have a son, he said quietly. I can't risk instability. Elena slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a contract. The numbers made Daniel's breath hitch. This would cover both of you, Elena said. Healthcare, education, stability. Daniel closed the folder slowly. This feels like charity, he said. Elena shook her head. It's responsibility. Mine. Daniel asked for time. That evening, he told Ethan about the offer. They sat on the couch, hands moving in familiar rhythms. Would you like me to help another child like you? Daniel signed. Ethan thought for a moment, then smiled.
Yes, but don't leave me.
Daniel hugged him tightly. The next morning, Daniel returned to Elena's office. I'll accept, he said. On one condition. Elena looked up. Name it. That you keep learning, Daniel said. That Lily doesn't depend on me instead of you. Elena nodded without hesitation. Deal. The change was immediate. Within weeks, Lily blossomed. She spoke, signed, more confidently. She laughed louder. She stopped shrinking. Elena watched it all, humbled. One evening, as they decorated a Christmas tree together, Lily signed something that made both adults freeze. I like it when you're both here. Elena and Daniel exchanged a glance. Something unspoken settled between them. They were building more than a routine. They were building a family, without realizing how close they were to crossing a line neither of them had planned to step over. And Christmas was only days away. The Christmas miracle no one could buy. The second Christmas came quietly. No press releases. No board members. No cameras. Just snow falling outside Elena Wright's home, soft and steady, blanketing the world in white. Inside, the lights were low and warm. A modest Christmas tree stood near the window, its ornaments handmade, paper stars, glittered snowflakes, tiny mittens Lily had decorated herself. It wasn't the kind of Christmas Elena had grown up hosting, filled with luxury and noise. It was better. Lily stood in the living room, feet bouncing with excitement as she adjusted the red scarf around her neck. Is he coming? She signed, eyes shining. Elena smiled. Yes. They're almost here. A knock came at the door. Lily gasped, running to open it before Elena could stop her. Daniel stood outside, snow dusting his hair, Ethan beside him holding a small gift bag. Both boys were bundled up, cheeks red from the cold. Lily threw her arms around Daniel, then Ethan, signing rapidly. You came. You really came. Daniel laughed, signing back. Of course we did. Ethan grinned and signed. Merry Christmas. The four of them moved inside, shaking snow from their coats. For a moment, they simply stood there, awkward, uncertain, until Lily tugged them all together, determined.
Sit.
Together.
They did.
Dinner was simple.
Soup. Bread.
Warm food passed hand to hand. No one rushed. No one checked their phone. The room was filled not with sound, but with connection. Afterward, Lily climbed onto the rug and stood in front of them, hands poised nervously. Daniel leaned forward. What is it? Lily took a deep breath. I want to say something. Elena's heart stilled. Lily signed slowly, carefully, the way she did when something mattered deeply. Last year, I felt alone. I thought Christmas was for other people. People who could hear. Her hands trembled. Daniel's jaw tightened. Elena reached for Lily's shoulder. But then you talked to me, Lily continued, looking at Daniel. And you didn't go away. She turned to her mother. And Mommy started learning my language. Tears slid down Elena's cheeks. Lily smiled softly. Now my world is bigger. Silence followed. Then Elena stood, hands shaking as she signed. I used to think giving you everything meant money and safety, she said. I was wrong. You taught me how to listen. Daniel watched them, overwhelmed. Ethan tugged Daniel's sleeve and signed. This feels like family. No one argued. Later that night, after the children fell asleep in a pile of blankets by the tree, Elena and Daniel stood by the window watching the snow. I never meant for this to happen, Elena said quietly. Daniel smiled. Neither did I. They stood there, close but not touching. Elena spoke again. You changed our lives. Daniel shook his head. We changed each other's. Outside, the snow continued to fall, gentle, patient, unstoppable. Inside, something fragile and beautiful had taken root. Not a miracle bought with power or money, but one built with open hands, open hearts, and a language that finally brought them all home.